Hi, today on Module 7, we are going to begin to familiarize ourselves with thinking and problem-solving skills that can be adapted for our home use. Okay, let's start with what is memory? Memory is a part of the mind that reconstructs what has been seen, heard, learned, or lived. A good memory improves a child's chances of doing well in school. What are some things that you need to know as a parent about memory? First, memory does help students with their schoolwork. Also, and this is very important, memory can be improved through practice. Just as many of the other things that we've talked about, when we practice something, it improves. Just like baseball, playing any kind of sport, dancing, and it's improved through practice. Okay. There are some times that forgetting can occur. One of those is immediately after it's been learned. When learning is not graphic, colorful, useful, or fun, then forgetting can occur. This is why many times teachers use very colorful anchor charts or illustrations in their classroom when they're teaching something. It's also why teachers connect the information that's being taught to something that the student may be interested in or that they find fun. Forgetting occurs when information is not written down or repeated. This is a big one for me. I find myself taking notes often when I'm at professional development at school, or when I'm in church. I find myself writing down the important parts so that I can review and that I can commit it to my long-term memory. When information is not reviewed, we find that forgetting can occur. And also, when we don't use information, we find that we forget. So let's talk about some strategies for memory enhancement. The first one is to use direct personal experience. Memory is heightened by direct personal experience. When students vote, march in a band, visit a museum, walk through a mock-up of a human heart, or sit in a cockpit of an airplane, they tend to remember these experiences for a long time. Students also will recall more easily what they have learned if they have to apply it. So encourage your child to use what he or she has learned. First-hand experience and direct application of what is learned in the classroom tend to be remembered. Another one is to spotlight important ideas. Parents should insist that their children always look for important ideas in their classes. Children can be taught at home to separate the important from the unimportant. Those things labeled as important will stay with your child much longer. Parents should fall into the habit of asking their children, what was the most important idea learned in math class or science class? So get in the habit of when your child comes home, ask them, what was the most important idea? You can also do this with a book they're reading or even a TV show you're watching together. Okay. The next one is to recite out loud. What children need to remember should be recited out loud. Talking to oneself, going over important information can drive this information deeply into our memory bank, where it can be drawn on later. A child should practice self-discussion, mulling over information at frequent intervals. It will be recalled more easily when it's needed later. And here's that big one again, to write things down. One of the best ways to stamp information into our memory is by writing it down. This preserves it for retrieval later on. Encourage your child to write down what is important to remember, then frequently check with them to make sure they're doing this. Another one is to repeat, drill, practice, drill, and repetition. 3 shortcuts to learning are practice, drill, and repetition. All 3 carve paths into one's memory. To learn something well, a child should go over it numerous times. Repetition is a great teacher and a surefire way to long-term retention. Find out some things from your child that they have to be remembered in each subject at school. Then help them drill this material. Make sure you set aside a time at home that you can do this. Overlearn. Overlearning is learning more than is necessary at that time. Keep in mind that children tend to overlearn what they like or they enjoy. Parents should understand that time spent in overlearning material promotes recall of it. Children should review material even after it has been learned. Not only does overlearning make recall automatic, it also breeds confidence in knowing material well. One overlearns through practice, drill, repetition, and review. When I think of overlearning and the practice, drill, repeat, a lot of times I think of learning multiplication tables. This is how I learned my multiplication tables in school. It was just practicing and then drilling with my parents and then repeating them often. And even when I knew them, to continue doing that sequence of practice, drill, and repeat, which would be the overlearning stage, till they become automatic. React to what is read, heard, or seen. What, when, how. Your children should try to remember to ask 3 questions when studying their subjects. Answering these questions will help them remember the material. And these questions are what, why, and how. If your children can remember and answer these questions in class, they will certainly be on their way to expanding their memory skills. Another big one is to visualize. Another memory technique that I have found that works in my classroom a lot is to visualize. When I'm reading a chapter book, a lot of times I'll ask my students to close their eyes or just to think about and to picture in their heads what they're seeing as I'm reading. Many times with picture books we will do this, and I will show them the pictures maybe later, or sometimes I never show them the pictures because I love them being able to visualize and have their own pictures. Okay, so visualizing is forming a mental picture of what is to be remembered. This is an excellent way to help young children recall things. Encourage your child to close his or her eyes and then create a picture of what is being remembered. The child should give it color, enlarge it, and then dwell on it for a few minutes. So after you've talked about something and you've practiced it at home, just ask them to close their eyes and to see in their head what you have been learning. Okay? And then also, children love games. So play memory games at home. There are many of these on the internet. There are ones that I know that teachers will share with you. One that I'm going to share today is just to simply get a folder or some kind of bag. We use a grocery bag in our classroom, and let your child decorate it with all the things they love, the foods they love, and the sports and the toys. Just draw pictures all over and put my memory bag on the front. Each day, you're going to ask your child to write on a small piece of paper things that they don't want to forget. Depending on their age, this could include phone numbers, important dates, or facts they've learned in school. It could also include your address. Each day, they will drop these little notes into their memory bag or their reminder bag. Later on, you're going to ask them, what did you deposit in your memory bag today? And they will tell you, my phone number is, and they will say their phone number. At the end of the week, you can take out the 5 or 7 things that's been put in that week and let them see if they can remember the things that have been put in. Okay? Let's get back to using memory exercising is also good. One's capacity to remember grows with exercise. Teach your child to do the following mental calisthenics. This will stretch his or her mental capabilities. Challenge your child to remember things like street signs, baseball cards, to memorize license plate numbers, telephone numbers of your family and your friends, batting averages, details in the shopping mall, Saturday TV shows, names of all their past teachers, the first 10 presidents, and then you can expand on that. Okay? So, what is thinking? Thinking is when we process information for present and future use. You can help your children develop their thinking powers by encouraging questions. I know sometimes we're tired, it's been a long day, and it seems like our children just have 1,000 questions, but questioning is such a great way for us to help them develop thinking powers, and we as parents need to encourage them to question us, to question their teachers when they want to know something, when they need to know information. And it's such a great thing. We love to do this at our family table, to encourage questions where we ask each other not just questions about our day, but about things that interest us. Provide a variety of experiences, and this does not have to be expensive things. Going to Disney World is a wonderful experience, but going fishing on a Saturday afternoon, spending time with Grandma and Grandpa, walking around the grocery store and talking about the different things you see, visiting a farm, driving down the road and looking at all the different things. And while you're doing this, you're talking and you're providing them a chance to question and you a chance to question them. This is another way to develop thinking powers. Riddles, a great way to develop thinking powers. My students at school, when they have riddles on their milk cartons, sometimes you find these in cereal boxes. There are tons that you can Google, but the children's favorite riddles are the ones that you make up and then the ones that we allow them to make up. So let's talk about the different kinds of thinking skills. Interpreting means to explain what something means. Explaining is making something clear and understandable, and as parents and as teachers, we do this a lot. When we break it down and make it very clear where they can understand what we are talking about. And then there's evaluating, which is judging, arguing, and estimating. All of these are different examples of kinds of thinking skills. Predicting is foretelling, declaring, and beforehand. We use this a lot in the classroom. When you're reading with your child, show them the cover of the book and let them predict what the book's going to be about. Even on a TV show, you can watch the first few minutes, stop it, and let them make predictions. Or maybe in the middle of the show, after they've gathered some evidence from the show, they've seen some things that are going on, stop it and let them predict what's going to happen next. Observing is watching, paying close attention to, and noticing. And things are really busy these days, and a lot of times I think we don't spend as much time observing as we used to. But one of my favorite things to do at school in science is to take the kids outside and let them just observe nature. This could be leaves or bugs, insects, butterflies. So spend time just watching, paying attention to things, analyzing, and that's when we study things in detail. And then, of course, is classifying. This is a big one, especially small children learn to do this. And classifying is when we begin to group things, and that is a type of thinking skill. Our younger children start this by grouping things that are the same shape or the same color. We find similarities between things. So classifying is when you put things in groups. Okay. Then there's synthesizing, which is pulling it all together. Comprehending is the understanding of something, and we hear this a lot of times. Did you comprehend? We talk about comprehension skills, but that's simply understanding what you're talking about. Hypothesizing is posing a theory or explaining something. This is used a lot. We hear this a lot in our science class when we talk about making a hypothesis. And then mental tracking out loud is talking to oneself. But this helps us, and we've learned this with our thinking. When we recite it out loud or say it out loud, we're helping ourselves remember things, and we're practicing a thinking skill. Okay, so let's talk about the problem-solving process. The first step in this is to simply identify what is the problem. And then next, once we have identified what is the problem, we are going to collect information. So we're going to set up a plan for acquiring the data or the statistics or the facts, and then we're going to set up a system for storing and retrieving that information. The next is to interpret the information. What does it mean? What does it show or what does it prove? To give explanations and to identify the relationships and the patterns. So that is step number 3. Number 4 is to brainstorm a list of possible solutions. Come up with as many solutions as possible without yet evaluating them. We do this a lot in class. We have a lot of brainstorming sessions. Number 5 is we're going to evaluate the possible solutions. What are the pros and cons? Who is helped and who is hurt with these solutions? Then we're going to make a decision. We're going to present arguments for it, and we're going to defend it as the best of all of the possible solutions. Problem solving is a skill that characterizes good thinkers. Okay? Pluses, minuses, and interesting points. This is called the Pmi Method. Another way to foster critical thought is to use the Pmi Method. Pmi stands for pluses, minuses, and interesting points. This is a systematic method for examining life's problems. Its purpose is to teach students to be broad-minded, to see all sides of a problem. Students are urged to explore what is good, which is the plus, about a decision or situation, then what is bad, which is the minus, about that decision or that situation, and finally students describe what is merely interesting about the situation. Okay. So let's talk just about a second about teaching analogies. An analogy is a comparison or likeness of items that have something in common. Like nose is to smell, so I use my nose to smell, as ear is to hear. And another one that would go with that would be mouth is to taste. Can you think of another one? Okay. Let's talk about synonyms and antonyms, and this is big in all grades in school. Another way of looking at words is through synonyms and antonyms. Synonyms and antonyms can be found in a book called a thesaurus. Synonyms are words that are similar, and we teach our children to look at that. Synonym is similar. Antonyms are words that are opposites. They have opposite meaning. The words sleep, doze, and nap are synonyms because they mean the same thing. The word pairs smile, frown, run, and stand are antonyms because they are opposite. Work on these two forms of word pairing with your children at home to make them think and expand their word skills. The beauty of these word exercises is they need not take a lot of time. You can practice them at mealtime or driving in the car. So you simply call out a word and ask them, can you tell me the synonym of this word? And we may begin by saying a word that means the same, and then teach them that synonym is the word for that. This module helped explain about that. This module explains to us ways of teaching our children memory and thinking skills. Both are tools to help our children increase their brain power. These skills do not develop overnight, nor do they grow on their own. They take time to be developed, and they have to be practiced. There is no best way to teach these skills. We as parents and as teachers have to experiment, trying different techniques and devising challenging games. What seems to work should be used again and again. Thank you, and I will see you soon.